Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Today, we're going to tackle how to interrupt politely in business English meetings. What to say, what to avoid doing. We're going to go through different situations, different types of meetings, and different formalities. Let's jump right in. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Melissa B. Duarte. I'm the author of the Global Business English Mastery Series. I do business English. This is what I do, and I'm sharing all of my knowledge with all of you guys. So, what we're going to do is we're going to break down these different levels of formality of ways you can jump into a meeting when you need to interrupt someone, but still be polite and professional. Again, I'm going to break them down by scenario and by formality. So, what you want to do is you want to listen to these and you want to go through and remember some of these lines. Even if your English isn't perfect, at least you can memorize these sentences, memorize these phrases, and then throw them in your next meeting when you need to jump in and interrupt somebody. What I will do is, and when I'm done this video, I will pop a PDF link down in the comments so you can just go down and download it so you have all of these for you. Okay, the first one is if you're in a really formal client meeting, an interview, or any type of formal meeting, a board meeting, and you need to interrupt. Now, first of all, why do we interrupt? Either someone has the wrong information or you need to give your 2 cents. 2 cents means your opinion. You need to give your 2 cents before it changes to the next topic. So let's take a look how we can do this. In quite a formal setting, you can say, can I jump in for 10 seconds to add some context? Can I jump in for a moment to add the details? I think that number might be incorrect. Can I just jump in for a second and clarify this? So if you have been learning English for some time, you would have learned that may is a lot more polite than can. This is kind of older, and even in the most formal context, people don't really say may so much anymore. So can is perfectly fine. But you're asking for permission to jump in. So you're saying, can I jump in for 10 seconds? And by adding that 10 seconds, you're telling people that this is not going to take a long time. So people are a lot more open to letting you take the floor. Take the floor means enter the conversation and speak. That people are a lot more open to that if they know you're not going to be talking for 5 minutes. So just by adding that 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 15 seconds, people are a lot more open to letting you jump in and interrupt them. Another one is if someone does have some incorrect information and you can say, I hate to interrupt, but I need to flag some numbers here. Or I hate to interrupt, but we need to go over that last number again. That seems incorrect to me. I hate to interrupt. You wrote down the client name wrong in the presentation. Let's make sure we all have it right. So by saying I hate to interrupt means I really don't want to interrupt. This is not my intention, and I understand this is a little disruptive. But by saying I hate to interrupt, this just means I have to interrupt. I don't want to do it. Please just let me speak for a second. So this is when you have to kind of flag something where something is incorrect, where you have to jump in, and that's a great way to do it. I hate to interrupt. We were talking about Tuesday for the launch, not Thursday. So if someone has the wrong information, you have to stop them right there. You need to interrupt. And you say that I hate to interrupt. Okay, so those previous ones were a little bit more on the formal side. When you have an internal meeting or you work in a quite casual industry, you don't have to be so formal. I mean, none of those were extremely formal because the perfect business English is not overly formal and not overly informal. It's in the middle. But this is kind of when you have an internal meeting. So what you can do is, if it's an internal meeting, you probably know everyone's name. So you can say, just on what Jane said, I'd like to clarify a couple things. Or can I just jump in for a second and continue the thought that Paul brought up? So by using people's names, then people can understand that you need to jump in on a specific topic or something that was said in particular. So people like that when you can connect what you're going to say with someone's name. That's very good. Another one would be, very briefly, I need to highlight this. So again, people are talking, it's a meeting, and maybe they're talking about a big launch coming up, and they've not even discussed anything about how your department is affected by this launch or what your department's doing for this launch. So you need to you need to let them know what's happening. So very briefly, from our side, this is what it looks like. So if you're kind of forgotten your input or your feedback or your team or your department, if they kind of forgot to include you, very briefly, this is what we're seeing. Very briefly, This is what we're doing. Very briefly, this is our thoughts on this. So this works really well when you're working with global teams and you're working, you're representing your whole country, you're representing a different branch. And and if they're not really, if they're talking about, I don't know, pen sales worldwide, and but they're not including your market. Let's say your market is Brazil, for example, and they're not including at all what's happening in your market, and so they're not getting the big picture. You just very briefly, this is what's happening for us. But very briefly, this is what we're seeing. This is good. Another way is a quick note to make sure we're on the same page. Now, this is when you need to clarify. So on this, I've done whole videos on clarifications, asking for repetition, saying I don't understand, but this is important too. So sometimes when meetings are so long, there's lots of data being thrown at you, lots of information, lots of back and forth. Sometimes you do need to get clarification. So just a quick note here to make sure we're on the same page. And to be on the same page means you have a complete understanding. You guys have the exact same opinion. Everyone is understanding each other perfectly. You understand the process, you understand the goals, you understand the work involved. So quick note just to make sure we're on the same page, and you're going to repeat something that you think is key to make sure that everyone is on the same page, in agreement about it. So this is a way to interrupt, but interrupt to clarify, which is very important. And again, as meetings are going on, and if you need to jump in with maybe some data or some stats, or again some information from your team or your department or your branch, you can just say, can I just add something here? And whatever that something is fine. Can I add something here? Can I add some data here? Can I add some numbers here? Can I add some client feedback here? Can I add some insight here? So again, you're asking to jump in, and it's very polite. Can I? But you're telling them what you're jumping in with. Can I add some numbers here? Can I add some insight here? Can I add some feedback here? And that's a great way to jump in on an internal meeting. Okay, now we're dealing with just online calls here. So, I mean, a lot of meetings happen online. These are really great techniques for the online call. So, one thing you can use your tools in the online call. You're going to do signal the hand raise, and then you're going to unmute and say, can I add, a 30-second update here? So, people are talking, things are moving along in the meeting, but you do need to jump in. Do need to interrupt. You signal that raised hand, unmute. Can I just jump in for 30 seconds here? I just need to add something quickly. So that's all you say. And then again, by adding 30 seconds or 15 seconds, people are really a lot more open to someone interrupting them. If you just say, can I just jump in here? How long is this going to take? You may get blocked, and not blocked like blocked, but you may get blocked with your question, and they may say, well, can you send it to me after the meeting or at the end of the meeting? If you just say, can I jump in here? But if you say, can I jump in here for 30 seconds? That's really going to open the door a lot wider. People are a lot more receptive to 30 seconds than a vague, can I just jump in here? So just add that seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. It really is big. Another one, audio issue, if there is a cut in. So again, often we work online, globally, sometimes people's internet can drop, audio can drop. If video drops, that's often okay. But if audio drops and you lost a key point, then you need to jump in, interrupt to make sure something is repeated. So sorry, I have to cut in. The audio dropped on my side. Can you repeat that last bit? So again, you jump in. Sorry to cut in. The audio dropped on my side. Can you repeat that last point? Can you repeat that number? Can you repeat that name? This also works if you didn't understand something, and you can blame it on your audio. I mean, don't do it too much, but this is a good one. So again, you do need to interrupt because a key point was said. Sorry to cut in, and cut in means interrupt. So sorry to cut in. The audio dropped on my end. Can you please go over that again, or whatever they were saying anyway? And then again, when you're kind of going around and people are jumping in and talking about different moments, things that are happening on the project or what's happening on their part of the team, everyone's a town hall, whatever the case may be, people are coming in, just say 10 seconds from me, and then I'll go right back to Bob. So if people are going around and talking about different projects, but they're not actually saying, what do you think? What's coming from your end? But you do have input, you do need to jump in on that. You can just say, 10 seconds from my end, 10 seconds from our department, then we'll jump into Maria or Bob. So if you know the next person they're going into, So for example, someone's talking, going, okay, we're talking about Q3 forecasts, and Maria's going to go over this, then we're going to go into Bob, and Bob's going to talk about the data updates on the system. So, and if you need to come in between those two people, then when Maria's done, just go 10 seconds from me, and then we'll go back to Bob, or we'll go back to Maria. So then by saying someone's name, it means I'm not just interrupting, I really understand the flow, and I understand we're either going on to Bob now, or we're going to go back to Maria, but just give me 10 seconds of your time. Okay, so we're dealing with interruptions and when you need to interrupt, and it's always uncomfortable because it's not polite, but of course it is necessary in some situations. So we've gone through different scenarios where do need to interrupt, where the language you can use, is little sentences you can throw in, are going to make people very open to you interrupting, joining the conversation, or fixing some items on the agenda that maybe you need to add your 2 cents on, or you need to correct. Now, this is a little bit different. This section is when something is urgent. So you're interrupting because this conversation, this meeting cannot continue until this is fixed. So this is when urgency is a really high risk. And this is very important. You need to jump in. So what you can say here is you can go and say, I need to interrupt for a safety concern on my end. So let's say, for example, you're working with logistics, and they're redoing a shipping route, and one of your warehouses really cannot take the amount of product that's coming in because you don't have the equipment or the shelving to carry that weight, whatever it may be. If you're interrupting for a certain concern, budget concern, safety concern, compliance concern, legal concern, say that as you interrupt, because you're saying, I'm jumping in for this reason. So I need to interrupt quickly for a safety concern. Or for example, you're talking with a client and they want you to do something which is outside the contract. Maybe it's not legal in your country. Maybe they want you to add a certain element to a product you're manufacturing, but that element's not legal in your country, or in your area. So I need to jump in with a legal concern here. So by saying concern and then popping the area of concern before that word, legal concern, safety concern, health concern, whatever, morale concern, whatever the case may be, at least you're highlighting the urgency of what you're saying. And by saying, a legal concern, people are going to be, yeah, jump in. This is very important. So this last section is when facts are drifting. So facts get a little bit blurry. And if someone is presenting or meeting and they say something which is incorrect, and maybe you don't need to necessarily interrupt, it's not crucial because maybe it's written correctly in the presentation or on the screen, or wherever the case may be, or in the document you're looking at, if it's written correctly, but someone's saying it wrong. So this isn't of the utmost urgency, but it's kind of gentle correction. You can say small correction on the figure. The margin was 4 points, not 5 points. So small correction on the date, small correction on the client's name. It ends in S, not Z. So if you do find that maybe it's not an urgent interruption, but you do want to clarify that someone did present something wrong, or maybe they said something correctly, but it was written wrong in the presentation or in the deck, or vice versa. It was written correctly on the deck, but it was said incorrectly, then small correction on this. And that's fine to totally jump in because other people probably did notice it. And it's very, you're meeting, things have to be correct. It's very important. Another one here would be if someone didn't mention a wrong day or something. So again, there could be a discrepancy between what's on the screen and what is said, or vice versa. And you can just say one small point here, the client meeting is next Thursday, not next Tuesday. So this is when you do have to jump in. So one small note here, just to clarify, and just by saying these little words, just to clarify, one small note here, and then you clarify, it's so much more important than just saying, you can't, if there's a big meeting happening and you say, the client meeting is Thursday, not Tuesday. Well, that came out randomly. You really do need to have a sentence or phrase beforehand. One note here, one little note on the slide, one little note in what you said, you mixed up the dates. So just by letting people know what you're going to say, that one little sentence allows you to interrupt. And you don't want to interrupt with facts first. Always a little introduction.